Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to film a bullet journal setup video getting ready for 2020. I did create a migration list in my 2019 second half of the year bullet journal that I will be referencing. I am also setting up for 2020 in the same journal I used last year, which is a Leuchtturm 1917 A5 dot grid in the navy. I've used these for years. You get a nice pocket in the back, 251 pre-numbered pages. The paper is 80 GSM and sort of a cream color, definitely not white. And then you get two bookmarks as well. And really I stick with them because I can fit 6 months in 250 pages. Anything less than that, I would be doing 3 or 4 notebooks a year. So the first thing I do to these notebooks is I essentially create columns within my index, and I treat each page as a 2-column index, and I just sort of measure out using a Filofax ruler so I can kind of do these evenly, and then I use it as a straight edge. I can get a full year in these 2-page spread using this column method. If you're curious, you can see it in my 2019 bullet journal. I'm planning on doing a flip of that as we near the end of the year. So flipping to the first dot grid page, I found a picture online, downloaded it, pulled it into Procreate, lettered the word space in 2020 on it. Space is my word of the year, and I didn't use this page last year, so I wanted to sort of decorate it, keep my word of the year on the front of my mind, and actually put this page to use. I think last year I wrote in pencil like resolutions question mark and then never filled it out, so I wanted to make sure I did get this used. Flipping the page, we're going to go ahead and set up my future log. I am using my Uni Jetstream for this. It's just one of those things where I've learned to give up gel pens because I hate smearing with a burning passion. I only set up a future log 6 months at a time. I am a Monday starter, so if those dates look a little bit different to you, that is why. And that Jetstream is a multi-pen, so I'm counting 8 squares down from my calendars and then 8 squares up from the bottom. And I essentially create 3 sections in each column. And I'm doing this in pencil because I don't want it to be like super dark. And then I will also write in the fiscal week numbers in pencil as well, again, because I don't want them super dark. It's just there for reference. And I don't mind using pencils in my journal to kind of create a different effect and just have something lighter. I guess it'd be similar to using like a light gray ink, but I've got the pencil and multi-pen, so that's what I'm using. So I typically only set up 6 months because I do use 2 journals per year with the way I set up my monthly, weekly, and daily spreads along with all the collections. And then instead of writing the month titles, I just pulled out that Tombow Dual Brush Pen and just sort of number what the month is. It acts as like a cool drop shadow, and it's a really sort of like minimalist way without having to do fancy calligraphy. You're just writing the numbers in. I split each column into 3 sections because I like to kind of separate the different things that I'm planning for in the future. Top section is holidays and birthdays, middle section, events and appointments, and then at the bottom it is like monthly specific bills and tasks, such as like car insurance is only due twice a year, so I like to remember to put those down on the specific months. Next page, I just titled 2020 plus. It's basically if any event comes up that's not within January to June of my future log, I will just write it down there. So when I set up my next bullet journal, I can reference it. And that worked out really well for me last year. So continuing that practice. And then on the next page, I'm starting my year at a glance. So I just wrote in 2020 with that same dual brush pen that I've been using throughout the setup thus far. I think I only used the one color through the entire setup. And I kind of like double up the ink at the bottom to create some sort of like ombre effect. And then I did this off camera, but I ended up going back in and adding some white gel pen to the lettering to kind of make it look like there was stars in it. It's just like a super easy way to make something look decorative because I am not an artist, but I have decent handwriting, and that's kind of how I make these bullet journals. I try and keep them really minimal because I think that that's what works for me. Again, Monday starter, doing the 2020 year at a glance, and you'll see that I just pulled the page up to right on the right hand side. This is a trick I picked up from Helen from the Coffee Monsters Co. She will just sort of like pull that page in so her hand isn't hanging off the edge, and I think that's brilliant. So if you haven't started doing that, give that a go. And then I'm writing in the first letter of the month on the calendar instead of trying to letter a title, similar to how I did on my future log. And I actually really like how that ended up working out, and something I might do in my next bullet journal as well. All right, so these pages I'm going to fill in off camera, but it's basically I'm splitting my New Year's resolutions into quarter goals. So on those pages, I'm going to do my quarter one goals, and then I will print out some photos and do like a vision board for 2020 for quarter one. So the first thing I like to set up in my journal is my daily trackers. I do a ton of tracking. Tracking is my planning love language. And I typically set my bullet journals as daily trackers, then weekly, then monthly trackers, and I will add various different things throughout the year. They don't all end up together. I just end up tabbing them if I need to find them or reference them regularly. But for some reason, I just prefer to have them all together. So there are certain things that I'm going to try and track all of 2020. And I'm just setting these up December through June. So it's a 7-month tracker. And last year I did a lot more specific tracking where, like, instead of saying, hey, I got 10,000 steps, I would write my specific steps that I got for the day and then highlight it if I got my goal. I wanted to sort of like downsize and take some of that thinking out and go a little bit more black and white as more of like, yes, I did it, or no, I didn't. So I like an open circle versus a check mark. I don't know why. It's just like a bigger visual difference for me. So if I make my goal, I'll do an open circle. If I don't make my goal, I'll do an X through the date. And within my planning process, I actually don't fill out any of my trackers until the next morning. So say today is December 5th. I won't fill out December 5th trackers until the morning of December 6th. That's just what works best for me, and that's how I stay the most consistent. So there are various things that I am tracking this year as I've been setting them up. I track my cycle. I track a no planner spend. I'm trying to work on making my bed next year, my step goal, my workout, and then sort of like my food intake for my daily tracking. So now we're moving on to my weekly trackers. This is my cleaning checklist. I did one of these last year, and it just helps me stay accountable when I do my weekly kind of cleaning routine. That way I don't go more than like 2 weeks without cleaning the front of the fridge or something like that. It just shows me, if I'm falling behind on something, I may not clean it all every week, but it's also just like double satisfying to go back and check things off when you are done cleaning. I decided to replicate all these spreads in my 2020 Hobonichi. That video will be coming soon. So I'm not sure if honestly all these spreads could get abandoned if I just end up using the one in my Hobonichi. But even if I end up using these more at the end of the month, I will go back and sort of like make sure my Hobonichi matches my bullet journal, since my bullet journals I only use 6 months at a time. So my Hobonichi is sort of like my source of reference. It's like the one planner to rule them all within my routine. Any Lord of the Rings fans out there? But again, I'm pulling out the pencil, and basically I clean my house in a specific order every week. I have a really small apartment, so I clean the bathroom first, then I clean the kitchen, then I do the bedroom, and then I do my living room in that order. So that's how I've sort of written things down in the order in which I clean my house. And then I use the pencil to subdivide by room, because I've got like vacuum on there twice, and I might vacuum the bedroom but not vacuum the living room because I think it's fine that week. I also set up sort of like a monthly cleaning tracker. So this could technically go in the monthly section, but I like having all my cleaning stuff in one page. But these are the things that I clean maybe once a month, or I try and do at least once a month. Multiple, so like making sure I clean my windows, vacuum the couch, vacuum out my car, switch out, the scrubby for in the kitchen, wipe down the floorboards, things that I don't need to do every week because they don't get that bad, but I try and keep up with them once a month so that they're not terrible. So next tracker I am setting up is my weekly measurements. Last year I tried to do like a monthly measurement tracker, but basically what I've learned is if I only do things once a month and it happens to be a bad day, I can be really discouraged about progress that I'm making. So I'm kind of trying to commit very fearfully to measuring myself once a week. I say this very fearfully because I know that if I abandon any tracker in 2020, it will be this one because for some reason I struggle to find the motivation to weigh myself. Well, not weigh myself, but measure myself. So if you ever feel like you're not making progress with your fitness goals and all you're tracking is your weight, try measuring yourself. Your body composition can really change, but your daily weigh-ins may not. So next page or spread, I call marriage moments. I'm just leaving that as a blank 2-page spread. Marriage moments is basically I will write down like date nights or any little thing that Brandon and I do together that we enjoy. The next 2-page spread was called call log. I talk to my best friend every week and I try and kind of summarize our conversation so that I can pay better attention when we talk the next week. So if she tells me like, oh, she's going to be out of town, then I can ask her like, how was the trip versus being like, what did you do last week? And we just talked. Next page I'm setting up is my run log. I've been getting into running a little bit. I won't say that I'm a runner. I'm a walk runner. But I want to start kind of tracking it, like, do I do better with morning runs, evening runs, just to see my progress a little bit more, because I think even as you get better with running, it still sucks while you're doing it. So I think if I can have some visual progress of like my pace increasing or things like that, that'll be good for me. Next spread is my 20 plus wish list. I'm creating 3 columns with that dual brush pen, and just to have 3 separate categories, I'm going to use planner, clothes, and other as my 3 categories. I want to be a little bit more intentional with my spending in 2020 and less impulsive. So if anything is over $20, I'm trying to write it down so I can think about it. And I've already got a bunch of things that were on a previous wish list that I am migrating into this new one. So it's just helping me pause before I purchase something is really the goal with these spreads. On the next page, I'm writing out long-term packages, and that's what this is basically if I've got a package that's going to take more than a month to get to me, or I assume it's going to take more than a month to get to me, I write it there so I don't forget that, I spent money, I should be expecting it, try and find it later. Now I'm setting up my 2020 reading list and my favorite fan fictions page. Basically, I use Goodreads, so I don't particularly need to track my 2020 list, but I like to sort of plan out like, hey, what books do I want to read this year as like a top 10 and then work my way through that. I don't do any like crazy spreads for the reading list. I just write them down, add a dot, and then cross them off when I get to it. And if I don't cross it off, then that's okay. So now we're setting up the monthly highlights page, basically my photo of the month. I will typically do 6 months at a time. I don't do a whole lot more than that. But basically what I've determined this year is I'm going to do similar to my Hobonichi setup, which you'll see in a bit. And instead of printing like 1 page per picture, I'm going to do a collage and print 2 and then put them down landscape. So it'll be like a half a photo per month, if that makes sense. So now I just put down an adorable Target dog sticker from Pigeon Paper Co. And I will pull in stickers every now and then if I like how something looks, just to add a little bit of a decorative element without going crazy. But this section, these next few pages, are what I call my ongoing list. And basically, I don't get to these stores that often, or I only try to make orders like once a month or at a specific sale. So this is where I just write down things like I only go to Target once a month. So when I know I need to get something at Target, I've got 1 place to write it down, 1 place to reference when I make my list. Same thing with Amazon. We get points, reward points from our cards. We try and use that to buy household items that we need. So I can kind of start keeping a running list as I realize we're running out of things that I would typically order. And then same thing from Sephora. I try to only shop their VIB Rouge sale. So I'll kind of do like a massive order, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Next, I set up just a 2-page spread, reserving some room for my Iceland master list. That's where we're going on our delayed honeymoon. I don't really know what's going to go in there yet, so I haven't filled anything in, but I'm reserving room for it. Same thing with a pay period schedule page that hasn't been released for 2020 yet, but I use that a lot when I set up my budgets, and then along with my reference page. So the reference page I left blank because these are the kind of things I typically end up putting, like I'd have to blur out or put a sticky note over when I do like a flip through. It's stuff like remembering my policy number for my car insurance and things like that. So I'll go back in and fill that in later off camera. It's just the stuff that I find I often need to reference if I'm on a phone call, and then I don't have to panic like trying to find it, I can just flip to that page. Next is sort of, call it last time, but it's like a when did I last page. And some people set these up as like specific trackers and they're trying to do things over the month. This is just more for my reference. Last time I got my tires changed on my car, last time I got an oil change, last time I went to the dentist, when Brandon went to the dentist, and things like that. And I sort of just treat it as a running list instead of doing it as a tracker. I set up 6 columns. I only end up filling in 4. I've currently got doctor, home, car, and beauty set up. So beauty would be like, when did I last get a new beauty blender or swap my razor head, things like that. And I'm sure a couple other columns will come up, so I've just left them blank for now. Next, I'm doing a quick collection for my sister's wedding. I'm her matron of honor. I've got several tasks, I've got different events, and I just wanted them all in one page. So I am going ahead and sort of filling this out on camera, but it's like events would be like, what's the day of the bridal shower? And then I've got some sub-tasks, things I need to do for that shower as her matron of honor, things I need to find. It's like, what she wants. We're all kind of on our own to find like our bridesmaid dress. So it's like, what are the requirements for that? Writing down the date and time of the rehearsal and things like that. And then on Sunday, she wants to go to church and then booking the hotel. Pretty easy. I just wanted to have all my to-dos in one place for that. I found last year doing something similar for my wedding worked out really well for me. And I don't have to like flip through weekly spreads and trying to find every single to-do related to her wedding. It's just one place, one collection, sort of like a project. So that's kind of how I use that. That's a longer video than I thought it was going to be. So now that we've kind of got what I consider to be my beginning pages set up, I'm going to go ahead and fill in my index. I think index is something that I've just learned to do over time. I used to never index in my bullet journal, and I really think this started from using the Hobonichi, but I'm just going back in and writing the first page of spread starts on and then a title. And eventually I will go back and color code this with the different sort of subcategories like I did in last year's bullet journal and like I do in my Hobonichi. I find that that system works really well for me. I don't index everything. I guess I should address that. Like when it comes to my monthly pages, when I set up, I'll probably do a video on that. If you guys are curious or you would like to see a monthly setup video, let me know in the comments down below. But within my monthlies, I set up maybe 20 pages of different like spreads that I use between my calendars and habit trackers and the things I need to track over the months, and then my weekly pages and stuff like that. And I will just sort of index my month as a chunk. So I won't do a line per page. I don't index every day. If I write like a quick daily to-do list, I'm not going to index that. So now I'm pulling out my zebra mild liners. These are what I use to sort of highlight and subcategorize my index, same as I do in my Hobonichi. I used to use a Tombow Dual Brush Pen. I just find the mild liners a little bit easier to travel with. So that's kind of why I ended up moving with them. I also have a surplus of colors of the mild liners because I do love them so much. So now we're going to flip to the back of the journal and I'm going to do essentially a swatch page and just sort of like having specific rubrics. And really what this ends up being is both a swatch page and a key. So I will inevitably play with some different pens if I want to see how quickly they dry and then go over them with a highlighter, a Tombow, or a mild liner. That's kind of where I'll test that. I'll make sure the pens aren't going to bleed through or the markers won't bleed through. And then anytime I add to my indexing color catalog, I will write down the specific Tombow, either the Tombow number or the specific like highlighter number. The zebra mild liners don't have like a specific number to them. I believe they do have names, but all of my mild liners I ordered directly from Japan or picked up when I was in Japan, so they don't have any English on them. I don't know if the English versions have like their names printed, but I just use the last 3 digits of the SKU off the barcode to sort of identify them a little bit better. I can struggle with like between the pinks and the reds and the oranges. They can all look very similar compared to the color versus the cap. So that's why I write them down. So I make sure I get the same color every time. And then anytime I use a different Tombow, so if I bought a brand new Tombow and started using it for a monthly spread, any color that I use in my journal, I like to put back there. So years, like a couple years from now, if I'm flipping through and be like, oh, I really like that color, what was it? I've got a quick reference of that in the back of the book. So just doing a quick flip so you can kind of see the pages that I have set up. These are the things that I kind of carry from year to year that works out really well for me. So if you guys have any questions, leave them down below, and I will catch you guys next time.